This is the Godox bicolor lighting panel. It is the P260C Pro model. I was sent this guy to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you about $100. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. Right, so in the box we have the light panel itself. And you can see here it has places for two Sony Style NP batteries. It has a DC 20 volt in, and it has this guy here. It also has a USB-C slot there powering the light coming in addition to the optional batteries that are not provided with the light. So this little back connection plate hits up with this guy here, which is kind of a proprietary setup. There's a button with this clip, and so you can push this down, and with the button down you can lock this in place up, and then it won't come out while that button's in place, and then you push the button and it pops back off again. And so this guy here would just clamp to the top of a lighting pole. So the light by itself without this little handle adapter is 2.3 pounds. Or just a little over a kilogram. It's 1,041 grams. So the included power supply takes in universal 100 to 240 volt, 50 to 60 hertz AC, puts out 20 volts DC, 2.4 amps. So it's rated at 48 watts. So it has 6 feet of cable on the DC side, and then you get another 6 feet of cable on the AC side. So basically this light can be up to 12 feet away from your power supply. So the power supply plugged in has a little green LED to indicate that it's getting power, but the watt draw is so small my meter won't even register anything. So when I plugged in the light, the first thing that popped up was a language selection. You have English here, and I'll hit set. So then you can basically pick your color temperature, and you can switch over to the brightness and select the brightness level. You have to go around several times to go all the way from 100 to 0 there. There seems to be some acceleration. So if you go slowly, you can get individual percentages, but you go quickly, it'll move up real fast. Now there's only two options here, but you don't just flip between them. You basically have to come out, move over, go in, and then adjust. So at full brightness, regardless of the color temperature, the watt draw varies between about 43 and 45 watts. So that's the power going into the power supply. So in addition to the CCT mode, you can also move over to a special effects mode. And they have things where like you can make a fire go, they have an SOS burst, they have things like a candle or a television or lightning or flash photography. But realistically, I think this panel is really designed more for just straight up lighting. Now there is a menu. You can turn on and off Bluetooth, so you can control this guy with an app, pick the language. There's this display, and you can adjust the brightness of the display so that, if for some reason this rear display was causing a problem, you could change the brightness down. And then there's a factory reset. There's a little bit of info about the fixture, just the model number, the firmware version, certification, current temperature. And then there's the on-off button over here, which does not turn the screen off, but does turn the light on and off. So they provide the DC 20 volt cable. You can also power this with USB-C power delivery. Your power adapter has to support at a minimum 9 volts, and it wants 5 amps at 9 volts. So if you do 12 volts, it's 4 amps. If you do 15 volts, it's 3.2 amps. But really, probably the best thing is if your power supply supports 20 volts, because that's 2.4 amps at 20 volts. Now, it will work off of power supplies that are like a 30 watt power supply, but it will limit the light output. And so if you want the full light output, you're going to want probably like a 65 watt USB-C power delivery power supply. You can also power it with two NP-F batteries. You probably want the larger, like the 970 size batteries for this job. And it does require both of these be installed at the same time. It will not work with just one battery. When you plug it in with the wired power supply, the screen just turns on automatically. When it's on the battery, you have to press and hold the power button before it will turn on. When it does that, it does have kind of a battery indicator. It's basically 1, 2, or 3 dots. So these batteries are maybe at 70%, so it has 2 dots out of the 3 there. And with that, you can, just battery operate this guy. So all you really need is the 2 batteries, and then it will produce light, wirelessly. Now, it will not recharge batteries in here. So if you plug in power supplies, that's just for the light. It does not operate as a battery charger, so you'll need a separate battery charger to charge your batteries. I think they missed an opportunity there. It'd be really nice if you could have the batteries just installed in the light. When you plug it in the studio, it charges them back up. When you unplug it and take it with you, they're already charged, but that's what they did. All right, size-wise, total, this thing's about 13 inches by about 9.5 inches. The actual light area here is just slightly under 1 foot by just slightly under, well, it's about 8.25 inches. Alright, so I am going to turn the brightness down to like 1%. And you can see here there are no spots, no visible lights. It looks to me like it might be an edge-lit panel that's, refracting the light back out. I'm going to turn the brightness up here, and as I do that, it is a completely solid white light. So there's no obvious LEDs in there. The edges look a little brighter than the center, but it looks like the light it projects is not going to have any patterns in it. And of course, you can change the color temperature of that light. So here's a white piece of paper at 2800 Kelvin. I'm going to slowly move this up. We're at 47 now. And now we're all the way up to 65 Kelvin. So that's kind of the cool white. And then I'll ramp it back down. That's the 2800 Kelvin warm white. So this is kind of a 20 watt style light. My guess here is this is probably a 40 watt of light. You can kind of see the difference in the size and the lighting pattern and the brightness there. So this guy just screws onto the top of a standard lighting pole here. With the batteries and the light, it's a little bit heavier than a lot of lights I put up here. This is not a large lighting pole, and so if you were to bend this all the way over, you want to pay attention to your feet. You want to make sure that you have one of your feet directly under this guy, because if it were over, in a different direction where you didn't have a foot directly under it, it might start to tip if you had it top heavy and off to one side like that. This lighting pole certainly will support it, but it is a little heavier, especially with these batteries, and if you start tilting it, that center of gravity can start shifting. It's still perfectly easy to lift up and carry around. Now there's a little bit of wiggle up here, and that's not in my pole, that's in this kind of joint between this connector that goes to the pole and this kind of hand up there. So that is kind of inherent in the light. It's not really part of the pole here. It's kind of this handle and this bit up here, that join. Alright, so here's 0 to 100 brightness levels going up and back down. So it's a very smooth, you can basically pick any brightness level you want. Now I'm going to move over to the color temperature. So here's 6500, and then we can scroll all the way back down to 2800. So when it's on battery power, a quick push will turn the light to 0 and back on, and if you want to actually turn the entire thing off, you have to push and hold. The same way, if you want to turn it back on, you have to push and hold to turn it back on. Alright, I have a 65 watt power delivery adapter plugged in here, and it's negotiated at 20 volt level. Now I'm going to move the brightness all the way up, and I'm going to change the color temperature to kind of midway. So with this light at full brightness, it's drawing 39.3 watts from that guy. It's 19.8 volts at 1.9 amps. So it is basically about a 40 watt light is what it looks like to me. What this means is if you have a burly enough USB-C power delivery power bank, you can power this guy from just any old power bank, as long as that power bank can provide 40 watts continuous going out to that light. So it's not necessary to use the NP-F batteries if you would prefer to use a USB-C power delivery power bank that can deliver 45 watts or so. Alright, so this guy has an NFC touch point, so it's supposedly you can configure it to your phone automatically. Alright, so the Godox Light app has 2.0 stars out of 362 reviews and 50,000 downloads. So this app is 32 megabytes in size. And it says there's a demo project. I can hit the plus button. That's a scenario. I'm trying to figure out how to add a light, all fixtures. Apparently they want you to log in before you can do anything. So you can sign up, you can email log in. See if there's any way I can do this without logging in. Alright, so I made a new project and it wants me to access the device location, and then it wants to access photos, media, and files on your device. I don't know why I would need that. I'm going to hit the plus button here and I'm going to do NFC edition. There we go, I got a beep. Oh, it's beeping at me, and I choose an action, Godox Light, for the tag collected. NFC services stopped. Open app again. I might have beeped it too many times. Alright, let me try that one more time. Alright, we beeped a single time. We choose an action, Godox Light, and my NFC service is stopped. And that might just be my phone. Let's try adding it a different way. Okay, we're going to try to add a fixture, and it looks like it has automatically found it without the NFC. I just click on this and say confirm. Please wait for pairing. It says it was successful. The icon up there hasn't changed at all, but I have a fixture now, and now it's changed to 50%. So that guy is up, and I can dim it down so you can kind of see what's going on now. And I can change the color temperature to warm or to cool. And you can do FX, so you can say, hey, make it look like somebody's welding. And so there's the welding special effects. Or make it look like a TV is flickering. And I guess that's the TV flickering. And they have lightning. So there's control, now there's cold cathode too. So you can change the intensity, you can change the color balance by picking a couple of numbers here or sliding to pick specific things, although you have to have this up a little bit so you can see that. So you can just slide this slider to change the color temperature. So in the project, you can add multiple fixtures in a group. There's controls and various things you can do for the whole thing, and you can turn the whole thing on and off. So you do have app control. So you can set up multiple projects with multiple scenes. It looks pretty complicated, so it would be useful if you had multiple of these lights and you had different scenes you want to be able to flip back and forth between very quickly. Alright, I've been pretty happy with this guy. Nice, completely smooth light coming out of this panel. I believe it's edge lit, and that's how it does that without having little dots in there. It can be battery powered, and it works pretty well off of the batteries. It comes with the power adapter, and if you want to, you can power it with USB-C. It's a good, pretty big size here. It's not super heavy without the batteries on it, but you do need, a slightly larger than normal light stand for the 45 watt style light. So I think it's a pretty good value at the price point. A couple little things. This adapter here, I don't know, it seems like they could just have that integrated because it seems like you're not going to not want to use that adapter. I don't see somebody using this handheld, so I'm not sure why there's that click in out. Maybe they have some other mounting options for some other systems, or maybe they have a specialized tripod that's specialized just for this light. But other than that, the manual worked pretty well. The app is a little complicated in my opinion, but I think it's geared towards people with like 5 or 6 of these guys, maybe some RGB ones, where they're setting up complicated scenes and they're programming everything ahead of time so they can switch between complicated scenes. If you just have one light, the controls back here are just fine.